Good afternoon, Carlos.
Good afternoon. How's it going, guys?
Good, thank you. And Dan Rosamodo is with us there. So, Jim, why don't you just take over and then we'll see you in 25 minutes.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very much, Francis. Gentlemen, welcome. Dan, hello, fellow.
How are you?
How do you like living in? Have you actually moved to Spain, Dan, after your tenure at the NBA, or?
I have the world's most expensive closet in Madrid, where my clothes currently reside. But they don't see me very often. I'm actually today I'm in London, so all good.
Well, both of you are just off of a very exciting weekend in Valencia, where the MotoGP champion was crowned in probably one of the best seasons I've seen. I must admit, when it comes to MotoGP, I am what you would call here in the States the ultimate fanboy. I don't think I've missed one of your races in 4 or 5 years, and I think your app is probably the best racing app out there. Hats off to both of you. Was the season as satisfying for both of you? First off, Carlos from a running the series side, and then Dan from a promotional side, as it was for the fans.
Well, yeah, thank you, and thank you for your very kind words. It's been a very big season for us in terms of new things coming into this to the championship. Not only Dan, in the management of the company, which is a big, let's say, cultural change for us. But also, as we introduced a very disruptive and new format into MotoGP weekends with a sprint race every Saturday at all events. So that's been, a huge asset. We've seen a historic record attendance to the calendar. So we've had over 2.5 million people come to the races during the season, and a huge uplift versus last year in terms of the TV audience. So really happy with the result of that. We maybe some months ago we didn't really expect the championship to be decided on the wire in Valencia, but it did, and I think that's all racing fans love that, and it's been a really a terrific trip this year. We've had a very intense end of the season where we've had 10 races, I think, in 14 weeks or something like that. So it's been quite intense for us. But really thankful to the riders, the teams, and the paddock for putting up an amazing show.
That scheduling with the season so packed in at the end, Dan and Carlos, is that something you're looking to alleviate a little bit in the future, or is that just a function of the way schedules work nowadays?
Well, there's a mathematical part of it where, we're looking to have 22 events next year, and, we sort of start in March and finish in November. So it sort of can't, it's a bit about how it's the way it is. But next year will be a bit better. This year we were sort of forced with Qatar, the circuit in Qatar going through extended renovation. We weren't able to open the year there like we traditionally do in March, and that had to be put at the end of the year. And then, a number of factors. So next year is a bit better than this one. And then we're also limited by the fact that we want to and we have to finish in Valencia in Europe, and we can't sort of, finish in December because we were already very, very lucky with the weather this year. But we don't want to stretch it. So
you talked about the change to the weekend format with the sprint. Was it as well received amongst the teams as it was amongst the fans?
Well, mix of opinions always, and that's every time that there's change, you always have, sort of both sides of the coin. And then, of course, now their opinions will be hugely impacted by their performance in the sprint race or not. And that's the way that racing is, I guess. So you have a lot of vested interests. But I think that a lot of the great thing about our championship is that, everybody understands that the industry that we're in, and they were all very happy to experience, an experiment with this new format. We made a minor change halfway through the season to allow for Friday morning to be completely free for them to have it a bit easier for the teams and riders. But you know, like I've said, and Dan, being new to the sport, you know, it's a huge uplift, you know, having 2 races each weekend, and the sprint on the, not that our Sunday races are extremely long, but the sprint, you know, the 20-minute race, and you know, a great podium next to the fans, it's proved to be you know, a very big part of the success of this year.
Dan, your first year, what do you think of this whole racing thing after a career in the American stick and ball side?
Yeah, I walked around our offices on Saturday after Jorge Martin won the sprint, and I said, "Is it always like this? Do we always?" I mean, and I made the joke that I was going to try to make every Grand Prix like Valencia, and people just started like almost revolting right then because it was so busy and so exciting and so hectic. But listen, I think what Carlos said is absolutely true. I think for our media partners and for our circuit partners, the sprint was a great addition to the calendar. And I think from when I got here, I really didn't know what to expect on the sporting side. I am not an expert at all whatsoever, but arriving at a place where the sport is in such good shape is really heartwarming for me, and it gives me so much optimism on what we can do on the commercial side. So it's a little bit of a traveling circus, and I loved every second of it. But I was very happy to see my my bet in Madrid on Monday night.
Well, I can tell
one night.
Yeah, I can tell you after 40 years of experience in motorsports, the traveling circus thing that applies to any series. I can tell you that much. You end up having a road family as much as you do a home family. Let's talk. Part of your remit is driver or rider promotion and that sort of stuff. Talk a little bit about what it's like to deal with some of these stars, because one of the things that I notice visibly as one who watches Formula One, I grew up in Watkins Glen, so I've been around racing my entire life, and Formula One specifically. The camaraderie and the feeling of oneness that I seem to see, at least it comes through on TV, in the paddock and after the race and that sort of stuff amongst the riders, is not seen in any other top level motorsport. What do they like to deal with?
I mean, it's only been almost 8 months for me now, but I keep saying that I have the advantage of, or for my team, the disadvantage of not only being an American, but I'm also New Jerseyan / New Yorker. So the cynical side of me is always looking for those not nice people. I won't curse on in this, but like I haven't found any in our paddock yet. So my view is that the camaraderie is unmatched, frankly. Now, what that does is, unfortunately, sometimes competition or disagreement sells. So would I like to have some more of that? Maybe, but I think that what we have is so unique, and we don't want to force anything, that the camaraderie comes with the territory. But what I would say is that these guys want to win, and what they do physically to put themselves on a bike every weekend is just awe-inspiring. They're riding hurt, they're riding banged up, they're rushing to come back because they want to do it. So I think if there's some camaraderie, it's well earned because they're working so hard to be the best in their sport.
Right. Carlos, part of the Dorna success, I think, comes from longevity, hiring from within a bit. You're in your 10th year as a full-time employee. You started out as an intern, and you've risen to be director of competition. How much of what we see on the racetrack can be directly, you can point directly to the fact that you guys have learned through the years what works and what doesn't work?
Well, I'd say all the good stuff you can point at that. And the bad stuff you can't. No, it's, I guess, you have it both ways, and you know the balance between innovation and tradition is a difficult one to handle. Of course, you know, bringing someone like Dan into the business has incredible attributes, and I was personally very pushy towards having someone from outside our industry because you know, they bring a lot of outside knowledge and experience, and also they sort of are amazed with everything that we sort of take for granted. But on the sporting side, I think that, you know, a lot of it, I'd say that, you know, even now that, you know, a lot of people have commented and given their opinion about Honda and Yamaha's difficulties, if you probably see their performance versus the top manufacturer, so from top to bottom manufacturer now, and see how that's changed in the past 30 years where we've Dorna has been involved in the sport. Even though, you know, we'd love to have Honda and Yamaha closer to the top in terms of performance, that gap from top to bottom is closer now than it's ever been. You know, they've both the manufacturers have had multiple podiums. You know, they've performed at a very high level in some races. You know, even Honda has had a victory and Yamaha has fought for some. So for us, the sporting product is always comes first of everything. Of course, you know, we safety is a huge aspect of the sport for us and the riders, and that's one that, you know, we've gained a lot of experience with in the last 3 decades. So I think, and Dan was reconforting about this one, you know, just before that, when he said that the sport is in great shape, and we believe that we are. You know, we're continuously pushing to make it better and better. And you guys will have seen that we've now announced a new concession system to help you know, the manufacturers that are struggling a bit. And that all comes through the experience of the past years, and you know how to position Moto2 and Moto3, and you know super. So you know there's a lot of moving pieces, and of course the experience from the past 30 years is a big part of that.
Talk a little bit about that concession thing that you just mentioned, because as Chip Ganassi, you may have heard or not a little bit of near the end of his thing, he made a statement that is probably one of the biggest truisms in all of racing, and that factories fuel motorsports. At this year, 17 races were won by Ducati. Honda and Aprilia were the only two to win, but in many ways the Ducati dominance is much like the Porsche dominance was in sports car racing. It isn't necessarily the factory winning all of the races. You have the bikes are so good that so many of the privateers are running the Ducatis. Now we've got Marc Marquez, who people never thought he would ever leave Honda, throwing his leg over a Bologna bullet. What can you do to bring a little bit more parity to the sport, and perhaps attract more manufacturers if there are? I mean, you know, we lost Suzuki. You definitely want to keep Honda and Yamaha around. How do you bring more into the sport and level the playing field, if at all?
Well, again, it goes back to the point. I think that the playing field is very leveled already. You know, if you compare it to some of the global motorsports, sort of the prototype based motorsports, where there are not that many in the world, we had basically all the grid in a second and a half in Valencia over the weekend. So, you know, if you compare it, you said Ducati's won 17 races. That's 2 less than one of the drivers won in Formula One this year, and that was between six. That was between six different. That was between 6 different Ducati riders. So
yeah, here.
So again, you know, would you rather? And you also have to think about, you know, there's 2 things that Dorna has pushed for a lot in the past years. Has been parity between manufacturers, and then parity between manufacturers and their independent team. And that has definitely, both of those things have happened, especially the second one, where independent teams has now become very important. I think that Ducati, with their strategy and philosophy of running their motorsport department, they've been able to provide a very good product at a very appealing price to independent teams, and that's made, you know, all 4 of them being able to win races this year, which is very unheard of. Of course, their product is great. I don't think that we'll continue to see 8 Ducatis on the grid for a very long time. I think that's going to change sooner or later. And again, with the concession system that was announced on Monday, we'll see that Honda and Yamaha had significant advantages in terms of development. And I hope that we'll see that result on track sooner rather than later. So I think we're in the right path to solve those for sure.
Let's chat about tires just briefly.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the comment.
All you.
Oh, yeah. They're the round black things at the front and the back.
I got
it. What about that? What's what can be done? What I'm sure you're working with your tire partners. Tell us what's going on.
So, well, I don't want to talk shop, but the reality is that we're
please do.
Happy.
It's only us. You're amongst friends.
We're huge. Yeah, exactly. We're hugely proud and happy to have a partner like we have with Michelin. You know, they provide an incredible service with a really high performance, and I think that, you know, that's part not of the problem, but you know, when you create a product that good that sort of maintains that sort of lean angle, that sort of performance, that sort of grip level during a 45-minute race, you know, these guys are doing, you know, it's rocket science what they do. And then, you know, in the past 5 or 6 years, the bikes have changed dramatically with both the aerodynamics and with ride height devices. And we have an agreement with the manufacturers that new tires, in terms of types of construction and compound, we give them a while. So we let the manufacturers test with those tires before we put them into the races. And then Michelin is going through that now. So all of this together has made, you know, the new type of aero and ride height has made that the front tire is under a lot of stress. And I think that minimum tire pressure is something that exists in all motorsport around, you know, the globe. You know, there's always a minimum tire pressure, and things that sort of, there was one in MotoGP already, but we weren't enforcing it, you know, very strongly. And that's what's changed, that we've had to start enforcing it because the teams were running very, very low. And I think that, you know, through the learning experience of this year, Michelin is happy to relook at the number. And I think that will really make a difference for next year. So they've also tested a new tire yesterday at Valencia, a new construction of the front, and that will bring significant improvement also. So those two things combined, I think we'll be in a much better position for next year.
And that tire pressure issue is a safety issue. That's the thing that people don't necessarily understand, is that you give them an inch, a team will take a mile. So they will play with those tire pressures, and the minimum tire pressure really is mandated for safety, is it not?
It is, yes. So we had teams running at a pressure that was, you know, when Michelin would strip the tires after, they would see that, you know, they were very close to maybe having, you know, a technical fault, exploding or something. So it was a safety matter, which was also raised by the manufacturers, and so that was, you know, there's a common consensus between all to install that. Now we're just working on the number.
Well, unfortunately, 25 minutes is certainly not enough for me to talk to you two lads about motorcycle racing. So I've got to change the subject a little bit. Besides Pecco Bagnaia's back-to-back title in your Superbike Championship, you had a back-to-back champion in Alvaro Bautista. You also run Moto 2 and Moto 3. Dan, what kind of efforts are underway to raise the profile of those series? It's almost, if I can say it, an embarrassment of riches that you folks enjoy with the quality of racing you get to oversee.
Yeah, no, it was certainly something that surprised the heck out of me, was just how much on the MotoGP side, how great the competition is in Moto 2 and Moto 3, and frankly, I mentioned Moto E as well, Jim. We have that, which races in Europe this year. But Moto 3 is just spectacular in terms of the racing. it's a little bit put one hand over your eye in terms of like how close they are sometimes, but they are aggressive and they're fearless in a lot of ways. And it's really fun to watch. In Moto2, we had some really good races between Pedro Costa winning the championship this year to Fernando Aldeguer winning the last 4 races of the year. I mean, it was a really fascinating season. And then Superbike, we actually, and I'll be honest with you, we kind of looked at Superbike for a couple of the ideas and brought them over to MotoGP because they do a really good job connecting with their fans. They really know who their audience is. They know what to do. They have a really good operational basis. And next year in Superbike, we're really excited because we're going to launch the Women's World Championship as part of that. So next April, we'll have Yamaha providing the bikes, and we'll have Women's World Champions that will be as part of Superbike in 5 weekend races, which will be great.
And that's outstanding. And you mentioned Moto E, and that takes me to sustainability. And this is really an area that you both have to deal with because the electric bike series, but also what do we do with MotoGP as it is now? Dan, if you could speak to the perhaps, for lack of a better term, the public relations promotional side, and Carlos, if you could speak to the technical side of sustainability.
Yeah, I mean,
you can go first, Dan.
I was going to let you do both. I think because they are so tied though, right? They are so like you can't.
Good point.
Yeah, you can't really fake the promotional side without really doing the work on the sporting and technical side. And another thing I was very much encouraged by when I showed up in Madrid is that we have a very good story in what we're trying to do for the environment. We obviously Moto E has Michelin provides a tire that's 53% sustainable. We've gone to hydrogen vehicles for our trucks to move us around. Carlos, God help him, did a really great effort with introducing new freight boxes, which reduces our cargo load. So we've made a lot of strides, and we have to continue to do it. We have to continue to work with our partners to innovate, work with our partners to think about how we can continue to bring the greatest, what I think is the most exciting sport, the most exciting racing in the world, but do it in a sustainable fashion. I think our fans expect that of us. We aligned with an agency to get our fans involved, to have them be involved in what they can do to, as they're watching, as they're attending races, for the sustainability efforts. And we've hired another group to work with us on what should our goals be. Because I think what's really important, Jim, is people can establish lofty goals and then put really small little asterisks on them. And we don't want to do that. We actually want to set realistic goals, realistic frameworks, and then attack them. And that's what we're trying to do right now. So we're looking towards the 2030, 2035 on what's really attainable for the sport. And we're going to then shout that from the rooftop.
Carlos, your turn.
I think that, again, it's like Dan was saying, all of it, it's a balance. We were even speaking, through the past 3 years, people have been talking about, dominance in the sport versus, interest in parity, and all of it is a balance, and as to what we're looking for in the future. And if you go forward and, I think that MotoGP as a championship, so the MotoGP class is the only one really looking, really able to have an interest in more of a mainstream audience, more outside an endemic motorsport fan base, and that's what we're sort of targeting it with, and that's why we're also pushing to MotoGP have a more predominant position in the championship. Although we do believe that Moto2 and Moto3 are probably the two most important feeder classes in global motorsport. If you compare it to other feeder classes in other championships, whether it's 2-wheel and 4-wheel, there's nothing really like Moto2 and Moto3 where the riders are famous. They get asked for autographs and photographs outside the circuits, etc. So we're really proud of those classes, but we're conscious that MotoGP is sort of the pinnacle, and that's the heroes and the riders that we have to push in the mainstream and non-endemic channels. So I don't know if that's answered the question, but we try to position each different championship that we run within the road to MotoGP, and we also have a huge department and effort to promote two-wheel racing. So, and for young kids throughout the world, with our mini GP and talent platform series, to make sure that more and more kids are racing in two wheels. So, it's all of this sort of comes together at the higher level.
Well, gentlemen, thank you for your time. I can tell you, I'm old enough to remember when Kenny Roberts revolutionized the sport because he tipped his bike over after learning how to control a bike on the dirt tracks of America. And he led Freddie Spencer and Kevin Schwann's and many great American champions. But the sport has never been in better hands, and I'm definitely looking forward to watching more great racing in 2024. Thank you for joining the EPARTRADE Industry Race Week and letting us know what's going on in the two-wheel world.
Well, thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. Keep watching, please.
Oh, I will. Trust me.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Carlos. Thank you, Dan.
Registering on EPARTRADE is easy. To start, click on the Join for Free button on the homepage. First, search your company to see if it's already in our database. If you see your company on the list, click on it to select it. Then, choose Claim Company if you are one of the decision makers, an owner, marketing person, or main company contact. Or choose Join Company if you are an employee, and press Continue. If you couldn't find your company in our database, select Register a New Company. On the following page, fill out your name, email, phone number, job title, and choose a secure password. If you chose Register a New Company, you'll need to choose your business type. Select Supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose Racing Business if you're looking to source new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose Race Team if you own or are a member of a professional race team. Then, enter your company name. Please provide a website, Facebook page, or LinkedIn if you have one, and choose to either claim or join the company. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Finally, click Register Now and your registration will be submitted for approval. An email will be sent to your inbox. Please confirm your email address and you will be approved shortly. Welcome to EPARTRADE.